Are you the person who hates budgeting? Then this video is for you. Now, budgeting is a very important part of personal finance or taking control of your finances. So I'm not saying that you should not budget, but statistics have proven that 70% of the people give up budgeting after a couple of months. That means the traditional forms of budgeting do not work for most people, and it did not work for me too. So in this video, I'm going to describe a very simple form of budgeting, which is kind of very intuitive, and it works for most people as long as you have a decent income where you can apply this budgeting technique. But before I go into the details, let me describe a few common budgeting methods that are prevalent in the world today. So the first one is, of course, the pen and paper is the most traditional form of budgeting and probably the most effective one if you can stick to it. But the problem with that is that then keeping track of your finances has to be a major activity or something that takes your mind share a lot. That means every day diligently you have to track your expenses and you have to write them down. You have to make sure that you are not missing any day, because as soon as you start missing a few days, you will be completely off track. And now this is good for people who are basically need to micromanage their finances because they may be under a lot of debt and they need to pay off that debt. They really need to control their expenses, things like that. So I'm not saying that it does not work or it is not needed. It is needed in certain scenarios. But let's say you don't have that kind of a problem. You have decent amount of debt or something like manageable amount of debt. You do not need to micromanage your finances, but you are really looking for an effective way to make sure that you are in control of your finances, or rather you want to work at the CEO level, not at the level of an employee where you are basically keeping track of everything. So that is why it is very important to apply this new form of budget to when you have a decent amount of income. Now, decent amount of income is something relative, so you will know as we discuss the different components of this budget. Another form of budgeting which is very close to this is called the ratio-based budget, where they say that you can spend 50% of your take-home pay on your needs, 30% on your wants, and then 20% you should save and invest. Now, that's a very good form of budgeting, but the problem is that the wants and needs are sometimes kind of very ill defined. So, when you talk about your expenses, in some cases, what may look like a want to somebody else may actually be needed in your scenario. For example, if you want to buy that coffee because you love that Starbucks coffee every day in the morning, now to somebody, some financial guru may say, okay, that's completely unnecessary and you should, that's part of your want budget. But it can be your need because that's what helps you do a better job in your career, or whatever you do. So once we do so in this form of budgeting, in the new form of budgeting, we don't want to look at expenses in the form of wants and needs, and I'll come to that. The other form of budgeting can be a much more sophisticated one where you are using a tool like you need a budget, and where they follow an envelope system. That means you have a goal for each of your financial categories. It could be you have an envelope for your grocery shopping, you have an envelope for, let's say, saving up down payment for the next home, and so on. So once you create all those envelopes, you need to make sure you are allocating money to each of them, keeping track that you are not overspending, or that you are not under allocating to any of the envelopes. And it's a very good system. I have used YNAB for years. It works for me, but I was looking for a much more simpler way to allocate my paycheck every month. And that's where I came across this budgeting method. I don't know if it is at other places, or I kind of derived it from the ratio based method. And the way I can divide that, my paycheck now is into three parts: savings, expenses, and my housing. Now, why is housing not considered as part of expense? Now, housing is something that you have once you buy a house or you are on rent, then you have much less control on that compared to the other two. So that's why I wanted to give a category of that. That is the first reason, that most of the times it's already fixed. But let's say you are in a situation where you are moving from renting and you are thinking of buying a home, or you are in the process of buying a home, thinking about how much mortgage you should take. This method will also give a special kind of category for the housing, and it will automatically make sure that you are not overbuying a home. That means you are not spending, let's say, 50% of your budget into a high mortgage. Now, in today's environment where mortgage rates have gone high, and it is very easy to get carried away emotionally once you like the home, and then you say, okay, let me take up this high mortgage and I'll be able to make adjustments to other areas. No, that can actually make your life miserable. So in this form, when you have these three categories, you want to give equal importance to each of these. So really, if you look at the screen behind me, I've kind of divided into three equal parts. So for example, you bring in $10,000 a month. And so now you can say, okay, I'll put roughly $3,000 in each of those, and $1,000 I can keep for other kind of other eventualities or emergencies, things like that. So what it does is now it restricts your housing costs within that 30% of your take home pay, which means it will automatically make you put an upper limit on the amount of mortgage you can take, the amount of home that you can buy, and things like that. The second category is your expenses. Now, when you look at your expenses, again, for some people may say, okay, living on 33% is not practical. But we are not talking about where your income is limited. Of course, it has to be, your income has to kind of sustain that amount of expenses that you are making. Otherwise, you'll have to work it out if you can reduce your expenses. But because your housing is not part of it, this expense part really have three components which are kind of your needs. So your food, transportation, and utilities. And I'll come to all the other discretionary expenses in a while. So once you are able to kind of keep a picture of your expenses within this 33%, let's start look at the last category, that is the savings and investments. Now, again, you may kind of exclaim that, okay, saving 30% is not practical for most people. But remember, this is a very aggressive budget from personal finance point of view. So we are saying that because you have a decent income, you should start at as saving 30 to 33% for your investments and other short-term savings. Maybe you need to build an emergency fund if you don't have one. Maybe you have some short-term goals, something that gives you value in your life. So let's say you love to travel, so you may actually open a travel fund and so on. So really we are giving priority to those expenses which will enrich your life as part of the savings and investments bucket. So now why is this not restrictive? Now, as I said, some people may feel that living on 30% of my take home pay can be very restrictive, but it is not, in the sense that it also, once you start implementing this, yes, in the first few months you may not be able to stay within that 33 to 40% of your expenses, and you may have to do a bit of adjustment. Maybe you'll save a little on this side, or maybe you bought a home at a much conservative time when interest rates were down, or let's say you really make an effort to shave off a bit of on from the housing bucket into the expenses bucket, but do your adjustments. And as your income grows, if you keep dividing into these three parts, what it does is it starts improving or starts allocating your pay raises into all three parts. So you are able to increase your expenses. Now, of course, you will not go and increase your mortgage. So let's say if you got like another $200 per month that you can allocate on the housing budget, what do? You can start keeping that for let's say maintenance issues, or you can start building an emergency fund for your housing, for your car breakdown scenarios. Or you can basically say, okay, now I'll kind of put this category as a lifestyle category, where I have taken care, I have bought the house that I wanted, and so rest of the money in this category I will use for other lifestyle expenses. That means you want to buy something new, or really the want part of that. And then the middle part of expenses remains your needs. And on the saving side, again, I mean, you are not only saving, or rather, you are not only just investing for your long term, but you are also saving for certain big ticket items that may come up during the year or in the next 2 to 3 years. So hope you like this new form of budgeting. Please put in the comments if you think this is not practical for you or if it really helps you. And please do not forget to subscribe to my channel. If you subscribe to my channel, then YouTube will show you more videos that I'll be making over the coming weeks and months. And if this video really helped you, if you think this budgeting is really resonates with you, then please also hit the thumbs up button. Thank you.